I'm not seeing it anywhere. Why are we not seeing it anywhere? Oh, here we go. I see YouTube going. I don't see X streaming.
I don't either.
Oh, you dirty bastard, Elon. I have all of the destinations set to stream. What is going on? I guess X is not going to like me today. Hmm.
Oh yeah, it
Well.
says I just got a
Oh, no, nope, nope.
notification.
I,
You're
I'm
live.
live. I'm waiting for you to catch up, though. Why are you? I used all the stream stuff that you gave me.
I don't know.
Well, that kind of sucks.
That's right.
Give it like a minute or so and see if it syncs up. I don't know how, because all of these kind of took a while to stagger here. So
Yeah, I just shared your stream. But
okay,
since
well,
Elon hates you, maybe nobody will see it. But
that is probably true. My gosh. Yeah, I'm not seeing yours syncing up, and I don't know what's going on. So I think we'll just
Nope.
go ahead and continue if you don't mind.
Okay, it's fine with me.
All right. Amity Dolby, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Man, I was looking back. I had to actually check. And the first time you were on the show was 7 months ago. It feels like a lot longer than that.
Was it that long ago?
It was July of 2025. And I was looking at the thumbnail. And the thumbnail caption back when I used to do thumbnails like that was like, is Donald Trump in the Epstein files? And well, I think we have an answer to that one. At least we know that much. But no, seriously, like you've made such a change, I think, from the first time you were on. You were still tinkering with the idea of anarchism and, sort of maybe absorbing my argument a little bit that it's actually white-pilled, it's not black-pilled. And I've loved watching the change. So maybe you could talk me through, because obviously, I'm just getting snapshots. I see you posting on Twitter, and I get little updates here and there, but I haven't heard the story. So why don't you walk me through where you were 7 months ago, and where you sort of ended up now. I'm super curious about your thought process, things you considered, the arguments you took in, and sort of how you got here.
Yeah, well, as you know, I had kind of left the Libertarian Party after being a member for, since 2013 when the GOP did Ron Paul dirty. And I joined the Libertarian Party, and then in 24, I had really high hopes for Donald Trump, his campaign. He was talking about no new wars. He was talking about Doge, cutting spending, all the things that we've talked about so much on X. And so I had joined the Republican Liberty Caucus, not because I wanted to, rejoin the establishment GOP, but because I thought that might be a vehicle to get more liberty-minded people in office to wreck the system, get the neocons out. Because when Donald Trump was elected, of course, he's bombed 8 countries in the first year. And I was just like, this is the same old, same old. Everybody's the same. I saw Republicans in the House and Senate voting for big spending bills after talking rhetoric about cutting spending, all the fraud, waste, and abuse that was found through the Doge project. And then they vote for these massive bills, the big, beautiful bill. It's Biden level spending plus. And so by that time, I had joined the Republican Liberty Caucus. I was actually the chair of the Virginia chapter. I helped form the chapter. I recruited a bunch of people, not just in Virginia, but nationwide. A lot of us who felt, disenfranchised, I guess, by the state of the Libertarian Party at the time after convention. And I was really gung-ho about making a difference. My complete and total goal was get more people like Thomas Massie in office. And then as time went on, I went to some establishment GOP campaign events in Virginia and some meetings, and I realized that the establishment does not want liberty. I would go to these events and I'd get a, a bless your heart type response from people when I'd tell them that I was the chair of the Liberty Caucus. And so the neocons and the big spenders, when they're spending on defense spending, the military industrial complex, and their pet projects, they have control and they're not going to cede control easily. And then after Trump put out his tweet, it was right around that same time we were on together, where he said, the Epstein files are fake. This is fake news. If you're still pushing for this, I don't want your support. Well, guess what? So he burnt that bridge. I didn't. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I thought he was going to do some good things. This was my first time ever voting for him. And he burnt the bridge, and then he bombed Iran. And, and then Venezuela. Drug boats, with no due process. And I mean, the Coast Guard is capturing boats off the West Coast. Why couldn't they do that on the, East Coast too, in the Caribbean? So this horrendous killing of people all over the globe with no clear reason or objective. It's fentanyl. Well, guess what? There's no fentanyl coming from Venezuela. So all these things just kind of had me spiraling out of control. Like, the federal government really is corrupt. There's no fixing it. And I can't participate. So I commend people like Thomas Massey who still want to dig in the trenches and try to change things from within. But for me personally, I felt like it was a futile effort. And there's just better things that I can do with my time than promoting the federal government, because it's just completely broken. And I just don't see how there's any way that we're going to fix it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious at this point. I want to say something, though. I'm going to cue you into something, and I want other people who might be struggling with this same issue to. So I'm going to bring this home for you. One of the problems with dealing with politicians, particularly federal politicians, and most particularly Donald Trump, is that we're handicapped sometimes because we have a need to make sense. We have a need to try to evaluate an issue like the Venezuelan drug boats. It's like, it's all bullshit. That's the answer here. Like, this is not, if you try to make sense out of it, you're actually hurting yourself a little bit, because it's not, we should all be aware that there's an agenda. He wants to do something, and anything they roll out as an excuse is not going to be based in facts. We know that there was no fentanyl on those drug boats, but we get suckered into these arguments, and we start talking about the issues and why we should go to war with Iran or why we shouldn't go to war. It's like, it's difficult because it's all complete bullshit. We all know there's other reasons behind it. I don't think we know all the reasons, but I think you can sort of infer from context clues, which I'm really great at doing, being the autistic pattern recognition guy. It's like, well, clearly there's something else behind the scenes here. There's Israel's interest. That's a huge component to it. And I think the Epstein files is a huge component. If you haven't noticed, Venezuela, the bullshit, that Nick guy in Minnesota with the Somali daycare, and there was the Los Angeles thing that kicked it off, and then there was the ICE things where they're shooting people in the streets. And if you notice, the administration is getting really good at timing the news cycle, and they're spinning these distractions one after another, after another, after another. And by the time you get caught up to the latest one, they've already moved on to the next one. And they're paying attention to the interest in the Epstein files. And if they wait too long, guess what? People start pushing again, and people start asking more questions. They start digging, and then it becomes a public issue. And so I think that's probably what's driving most of the news cycle right now, is that we've got to have some major distraction from Epstein, because it's something that the public really seems to care about, at least the salacious aspects of the story. I'm really unclear about how much the public truly cares about the children that were impacted and the young women that whose lives were ruined. That's a whole other topic. But they're pragmatically looking at this like, how can we limp along to the midterms? I really believe that's what this is. They're trying to just get somehow distract away from the Epstein files long enough to get to the midterms, and maybe they can salvage, something that they might be able to spin as a win. But I think we all know it's going to be a catastrophic loss. Like, what do you think of that analysis? Do I have it right, or do you have something you'd like to add, or something I missed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of distractions. I don't trust anything the federal government says to me. So, I take everything with a grain of salt and try not to get too caught up in it. Although, the discussions on X are lively, and it's fodder for engagement and what have you. But I've my philosophy now is to focus on things that mean a lot to me. I mean, you alluded to, women were hurt, and in these wars, people are being killed. Like, literally, innocent people are being bombed by our government, and there's nothing I can physically do about that myself. And so all I can do is focus on the advocacy that means a lot to me, and try to just remember that the things I can't control, I can bitch about online, but there's really nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and I feel bad because, as you know, like, we've been planning the escape and trying to build the off-grid property in Tennessee, and just sort of get out of the dollar as much as possible and be self-sufficient as much as possible. I feel bad for not starting sooner, because I feel this moral responsibility. I know that, like, maybe we can talk about this too with your sort of transition, not transition, your conversion to Catholicism. Like, I know it's a really important part of your life, and for me, even though I'm not religious, ethics are just as important to me. You probably see me all the time, right and wrong, very, very important to me. Treating people ethically, very, very important to me. And so if you're participating in this dollar system, this fiat system, that money is going directly to that military industrial complex to blow up innocent people around the world and do horrendous things, including like covering up the Epstein files. And you could list like 9 million other things that the government is doing with your dollars. And it's not just dollars, right? It's not just paper. This is your productive input, and each of us is sort of responsible morally for, or at least culpable to some degree, for what we're feeding into that system. And that's something that's been weighing on me heavily. Have you had similar thoughts?
Yeah, I think creating parallel systems and alternative currencies, getting into that is really important. I am a total retard when it comes to alternative currencies. So, I tried to get into like the Bitcoin game, and I still could never understand it. I had people like, I'd be like, explain it to me like I'm 5. And I still didn't get it. But the more we can get our money out of fiat and into parallel systems, that's definitely the key. And then we're participating less in what the government is doing. Now, I have a corporate job, so of course I'm paid on the payroll, and they send my money to DC out of my paycheck. There's not much I can do about that as long as I have a corporate job. But when we can create those systems and jump into those systems that don't involve the federal government, then the better. And that gets into localism too, is just trying to trade with your neighbor, or support local businesses, anything to stay out of government taxing you and taxing your transactions is really key to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree that you can't do much about it if you have a corporate job, which is why I've been looking really hard to get out of my corporate job. It's it's very difficult, because we've got the golden handcuffs over here in tech. It's a real problem when you get used to making that kind of money. It's very difficult to make a transition to something else, and that's something that I've been feeling really bad about myself for. Like, I'm like, I really should be just looking at things a little bit differently and transitioning faster. And it's been weighing heavy on me. It's because like I'm paying like more than six figures every year in taxes. So that's going directly to the federal government. And I really do. I think about every single dollar, like how much can be used to harm people, like how much the federal government uses throughout the course of my career, and it really makes me sad and makes me feel guilty. I really struggle with that a lot, and I really wish the libertarian people, not the party, not the movement, people who are liberty minded would spend a lot more time focusing on, like you said, building those parallel systems, exiting the fiat dollar system, and doing the best they can to sort of trade and transact outside of the sort of fiat paradigm. I think we'd have a lot more success if we did that, because there's just not a lot of parallel systems out there right now. I mean, there are. People are sort of tinkering with things, they're experimenting, but mass adoption, it's pretty difficult. And to be fair, the government makes it very difficult to transact in those, because at some point, because of the nature of taxation, we have to convert some of those to pay, the federal government. That's just the way the system's set up, and they like to catch you there. They like anytime you sort of exchange, those currencies for fiat, like the government's going to be right there in the middle of the whole thing. And I don't have an answer to this. It's just kind of like a general complaint. I wish that the liberty people, because there's so many smart people in the community, and it feels like everybody is concerned with making their arguments and fighting about the minutia of every tiny detail, and doing purity tests towards each other, and fighting in political battles on who's going to run the LP. Like, that's not moving the needle at all. I feel like we really got to, like you said, think locally, sort of start looking at our sphere of influence as us as individuals, and then our families, and then our local communities and neighborhoods, and outward. And I think so much is like the funnel's inverted. Like, everyone is so focused on who the president is and who's going to Congress and the federal stuff. And like, I think we have it backwards.
Yeah, I try to focus on the positive, only because, like I said, there's things I can't control. And so I can only do what I can do. So, I work for a great company. All the board members are Catholic, which is a crazy story, because right after my conversion, our company, it was very woke, and it was owned by a very woke, like DEI type, corporate structure. And right after my conversion, another company bought us out, and the board was filled with Catholics. And my direct boss, who is a VP in the hierarchy, he's Catholic. And so those ethics are brought into the company. And so beyond the tax structure that I can't control, the rest of it is, I feel good about my job, and I love my job. So I just try to focus on that and not worry about the rest, because there's nothing I can do about it. Now, as far as people in the liberty movement, I know a great deal of people who are agorist, who are into alternative currencies, who are trying to get out of the system as much as possible, homesteaders. There are amazing people in the liberty movement. You know a lot of them. And so I think there are people doing the work, and some people who bitch online are actually doing things behind the scenes as well. They just happen to do both.
Yeah, we can certainly walk and chew gum at the same time, and I think we should. And maybe maybe my algorithm's screwed up. Maybe I'm just seeing a lot of the stuff that drives engagement, which is typically negative, and is typically people fighting with each other and stuff. Like, I don't know, but I would love to see more of that. If there's anyone who's doing that type of stuff, boy, like, send them my way. Tag me in their posts. Like, I want to see all of it, because I think there's so much brilliance collectively in the liberty community, and we could do so much if we just stopped worrying about the government and just like, okay, what can we build? What do we have control over? What can we actually do, particularly being in tech? And I sort of see the way that tech can be used to just kind of change the world and get us out of that government paradigm. Like, boy, I think it's really powerful, and it's underlooked. And I really want to get around more people that are doing that type of thing. So I do want to talk about the Catholic thing a little bit, because it seems like there's a resurgence, and it's really shocking to me, because I grew up incredibly Catholic. I think I've told you a little bit about my story. Like, my grandfather's brother was like the bishop of the state of South Dakota for 28 years, and my mom's cousin was a Jesuit in the Vatican, like a theology professor, like incredibly Catholic upbringing. I went to Catholic school and all this stuff. And it seemed like Catholicism kind of took an arc. It felt like it was like, it was kind of steady in the United States that I was growing up, like the 80s, maybe the early 90s. It was kind of steady, and then it sort of fell off. It felt like a lot of people fell away from the church and it expanded more into the Latin communities in Central and South America. It really, really grew in other parts of the world. But in America, mass attendance really went down. Look at all the metrics. It seemed like it really took a big dive. And now it seems like there's a resurgence. I'm seeing it everywhere. Like I see people all over the place. My friend Pat Flynn, who is like a PhD philosophy dude, like he's Catholic. I know you're in the carnivore community, or at least carnivore adjacent. I'm not sure if you know Mimi Morgan or not.
No,
Oh.
I'm not carnivore.
Oh, you were kind of low carb though, right? Like were you like?
Oh yeah, I am, but
Well,
I
anyway,
eat vegetables though.
yeah. So she's a really huge, person in that community, that low carb space, carnivore space. She had Parkinson's and a whole bunch of other conditions that was sort of reversed with it. But Mimi, she converted to Catholicism like roughly the same time you did, and that's just two examples. But I'm seeing like this all over the place, and so I want to know like how did you get interested in it, or how did you become aware, and sort of like walk me through how you moved from where you were to kind of where you are now, because I see it like it's really important part of your life, and I just want to sort of understand what's going on, because I'm seeing all of this everywhere, and I'm not really seeing like how people are getting brought in, if that makes sense. Like I'm not seeing a lot of activity as far as like they're not doing like a marketing campaign, right? Like they're not doing
Nope.
Super Bowl commercials, but I'm seeing like a hell of a lot more Catholics lately. So I'm wondering like what's going on?
Well, that's one thing I noticed is, so I grew up Methodist. I was baptized Presbyterian, but for most of my childhood, we went to a Methodist church. And in my early 20s, I got into ministry, and later on, I was on a worship team at a mega church. So I have always like studied scripture and kind of looked for my path. One thing I notice about Catholicism, and especially being around a lot of different denominations on message boards over the last 25 years and things like that, they don't evangelize. Like your life is your evangelization. They don't go out and stand on street corners and say, convert or go to hell. Nothing like that, which is wild to me because there are so many people converting. For me personally, it was just my own study, my own prayer, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to become Catholic. It's a much longer story than that, but I found after that, when I was going through the RCIA program to become Catholic, I found the Coming Home Network, which is a website with an online community and a bunch of resources. And there are thousands of people online seeking out Catholicism. And nobody's trying to twist their arm to become Catholic. I mean, you can even call up a parish and be like, hey, I'm interested in becoming Catholic. And they're like, oh, cool. Well, here's some classes that start in 6 months. If you were to call up a evangelical megachurch and say, I think I'm interested in your church, they'd be like, oh my gosh, come in, let's talk about this, let's pray together, let me take you out to coffee, and all this. It's just so, it's all about seeking Jesus, and seeking his church, and being an ethical person, and being charitable, and loving God, and just finding where you fit into that Christianity. And so, yeah, it's wild. I know in my parish in Virginia that I just moved from, there's going to be over 900 people confirmed on Easter Vigil. And this is happening all over the country. I saw reports on Ash Wednesday, which was just a couple weeks ago. Churches were packed, and Ash Wednesday isn't even like a holy day of obligation, which, are the few, I think there's like 8 throughout the year other than Sundays, where the church says you need to be here for this mass. It's not even one of those days, and people are attending, and people are falling in love with the Catholic Church and the faith that comes with it. And I think it's just beautiful. I think it's just, you know, people are looking for somewhere to belong. And uh, I mean, for me personally, I believe the Catholic Church is the church that was established by Jesus 2,000 years ago. And a lot of stuff happened. You know, the history that I learned growing up was just from the Reformation forward. But when you start looking back at all the history, I mean, for me, it was nothing but to draw me in and just go from there.
Yeah, I wonder if this sort of pivot back to Catholicism might be a little bit of a repudiation stylistically of the evangelicals in America, right? Because you have like this TPUSA mega church with fucking fireworks and pyrotechnics and flying pastors on wires, and and I think that the Catholic Church has got more. I don't know. There seems to be a reverence to it. It's a quiet reverence, right? And I think like I've been to Rome like 3 times in the last like little bit, and I was just constantly walking around this cathedral to cathedral, looking at the amount of care and detail that they put into the buildings and to everything that was in there, the statues, and like they made it a place where it's supposed to be awe-inspiring, and it's always quiet. It's not you got a guitar player up there and a drum, like a full band and all. Like it's like the opposite of that. And so I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think there's something to that, or do you think that's just like a spurious correlation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to. Uh, I mean, I can compare, but I don't like to really talk down about, other churches because everybody's on their own journey. And I spent my entire life up until just a few years ago in churches similar, some more conservative than others in other denominations that I was a part of for a few years here and there. But everybody's on their own journey seeking a relationship with Jesus. And whatever gets them to that point, I can't fault them for that because I was there myself. But when it comes to the reverence, that's really something that drew me in. I used to go to New York City at least once a year, and I would always go into St. Patrick's Cathedral way before I was Catholic. And I would always just be awe-inspired by the architecture and, like you said, the silence and the reverence. And I would even just walk up to the statues of, the Blessed Mother with candles lit in front of her, and I would just like feel this peace. And I really don't know how to put it into words other than just this peace in my soul. And so I don't think that my experience is unique. I think when you walk into those cathedrals, you really feel like you're on holy ground. And for me, that was definitely a component of it, where, I like the pyrotechnics and the rock bands and all that. I like going to Christian concerts. But when it comes to worship and the sacrifice of the Mass, that reverence is where I believe we're honoring Jesus. And for me, that's where I need to be for sure.
Got it. And I'm not trying to talk down to anybody as far as like what their preference is. I'm just giving you my thoughts. Like when I see that type of thing, there's something, and maybe it is my old Catholicism, like coming up Catholic, that it's rubbing against, but it seems almost sacrilegious, right? Like there's something to it where I always like to picture, like even though I'm an atheist, I would still like, well, if Jesus was, dropped into this church, like what would he think about this? Like, would this be something that he'd be vibing with? And it seems like, at least based off what I know that he taught, that's not. It was humility, and it was not extravagant. It was not gaudy. It was not over the top. It wasn't attention seeking. It was kind of like this quiet sort of, low key type of vibe. And so maybe that's what I'm picking up on. But I just wonder if people are having the same type of thing where they sort of are like, looking for not only reverence, but also maybe more ritual, right? Because I think Catholicism, they're really big on rituals. You go every time, and it's the same every single time. You got your first reading, you got your second reading, you got your gospel reading, and it stand, sit, kneel, and there's audience participation. Like the guy says the thing, and then the audience says the thing back. And I think there's something to that. I think there's comfort for people. Like I watched my grandmother go to mass every day before, all the way till she died, and it's that ritual. I think helps reinforce some of the messages, helps reinforce some of the lessons and teachings, but also just provides comfort generally. I think human beings like to have predictability and comfort and ritual and a container around the experience to sort of help guide them through. And I think some churches probably don't do a great job because they're worried about, like you said, proselytizing. Like we want to make some money, we want to bring some people in, we're always looking to gather new members, and we want to grow. And the Catholics aren't really like that. Like I said, they're not really doing that type of outreach and that type of needing to wow people. I think that that's something that I wonder if that might be behind that kind of like increasing in the Catholic Church in the United States. I've been thinking about it a long time, but it's been a mystery to me because I just don't know anybody who's Catholic other than online.
Yeah, I think people are drawn to traditionalism these days. I think we've gone so far as a country in the other direction, or even around the world. I mean, there's other European countries that are moving the needle towards Catholicism again, even in the Protestant nations. And I love that I can travel anywhere in the U.S. and if I'm, somewhere on a Sunday and I go to mass, it's going to be the exact same. Like I know exactly what's going to happen. Like you said, it's beautiful. And I also love that in my journey in my Catholicism, I also have been able to intersect that with my political activism, and they just kind of meet together, and it's really a fabulous thing.
How does that work? Because like I wasn't political when I was Catholic. I left the church when I was almost like 17 or something like that, and that's way before I got into any sort of political or philosophical topics. So how do those two intersect for you?
Well, so my entire adult life, I was always pro-life and anti-war. And a lot of the conservatives in my life were pro-life, but then they were all patriotic when it came to wars, waving the American flag, let's go, insert our freedom all over the globe. And it never really sat well with me. And so I had always had this philosophy, but never really knew what to call it. And 2024 at the Libertarian Convention, I gave a speech for one of the presidential candidates, and I spoke about the pro-life stance and how the non-aggression principle should be from the womb to the tomb, that from conception to natural death, we should not be killing people, whether it's war, whether it's capital punishment, government-sponsored euthanasia, which is a big thing around the globe these days in Canada and Europe. And when Free and I started talking, he, of course, had heard my philosophy, my speech, and all that from back then. And he asked if I had heard of Cardinal Bernardine from Chicago. He was the Archbishop from Chicago. He's passed away since, but he had a philosophy called the consistent ethic of life. And the things that I had been advocating for and believing and talking about my entire adult life, he had actually put into this philosophy, and I had never heard of it. And of course, in Ecclesiastes, you hear there's nothing new under the sun. So, of course, somebody else is going to come up with this too. So he gave me a couple books from Cardinal Bernardine to read, and it was amazing that seeing this Catholic philosophy of the dignity of life being for the unborn, for those caught up in war, for the imprisoned, for the elderly, for the mentally ill, for the homeless, for the undocumented. Everyone, it has inherent human dignity, and we should be treating others with that in mind, that we shouldn't have this philosophy of, well, it's war, so people are going to die. No. We're killing people halfway across the world, babies, women, people who are conscripted into wars, who don't even know what they're fighting for, and our own people are coming home in body bags. It's just not right. And so I've been able to take this philosophy that I've always had and realize that this is exactly what the Catholic Church is teaching as well. Now, I've spun it because a lot of the Catholic teaching relies on government intervention. And my philosophy is to keep the government out of people's lives and advocate more for a government hands-off approach to these issues.
Got it. So thanks. That's a whole lot to absorb. As I was thinking,
Yeah.
though, you're talking. I want to sort of like tease out maybe the differences, if there are any, between that sort of principle of the sanctity of life in the Catholic Church. I forgot what you called that. What that cardinal called it.
Consistent ethic of life.
Consistent ethic of life, and the non-aggression principle. Right, because I'm very well versed in the non-aggression principle. Not so much over here. So are they like hand in glove, one-to-one match, or are there differences?
Oh, I think it fits in well. I mean, I can't speak for the church itself, but for, my activism, I teach that the non-aggression principle, like I said, is from the womb to the tomb. You have to protect life. And if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said if the government must exist, it must protect life, which includes the unborn. And since I believe abortion is murder, then the government should get involved in stopping that practice. However, if you take that to its logical conclusion, who are we going to be charging with murder? Women are in situations that sometimes are just a matter of, the society they live in, their financial situations, their relational situations. And I don't think it's good for the government to get involved in punishing women for having abortions. And then you get them involved, the government involved in medical decisions where what happens if someone has a miscarriage and someone else wants to say, oh no, they had an abortion. So what happens there? I just don't think that that's the right way to deal with it. I think if the government stays out and also stays out of our wallets so that we have more means to help people in causes we believe in, my answer to that is crisis pregnancy centers, getting the government less involved in adoption. All the things that the government screws up, if we can just be charitable people and as a community, as individuals, help these women that are in these situations, then, if we tackle the root causes of what causes abortion and find solutions for that, then there'll be less abortion.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And I think there's another aspect of it. And I know you and I got sideways on this issue, so I'm going to try to approach this and do a better job than I did last time. But I've always believed, and I can't see how it could be different, is that if we're going to be consistently applying the sort of like the consistent ethic of life, right, or the non-aggression principle, if you say, well, the government's job is to enforce X, Y, and Z, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to accept that they have the legal right to murder you, right? Like they have an initiatory force, like a monopoly on initiatory force within a given region. And if they say like, well, because you have to think about it, anything they do, they first have to collect taxes, right? So to operate at all, they have to steal money first of all, which is completely immoral. And every tax law saying like you have to pay your taxes is enforceable by murder. Right, like if you act, and people are always like, well, people, they don't. Yeah, I know, because they know the government's going to kill them. But if you disagree and you mean it, and you're just like, I want to be left alone on my own property, and I don't want to have you steal my money, eventually men with guns will come to your house, and they're going to try to attack you, tackle you, put handcuffs on you, drag you to a cage. And if you try to defend yourself from that assault, they will murder you every time, right? So that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about, because there's like 3-4 steps to get there, right? But if we're like, hey, life is sacred, we shouldn't aggress upon people, we shouldn't steal people, we shouldn't attack people and tackle them and do all these things, then I think that argument falls apart. Where it's like, well, government should do it. It's like, well, no, they shouldn't, because they have to do a bunch of evil shit first before they can even get to potentially enforcing something that you want enforced.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that's the journey that I've been on, and the conclusion that I'm coming to as well. Because if you think about it, governments are responsible for over 262 million deaths in the 20th century alone.
That's just a
The US
democide, right? That's their own people,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, in wars, in every aspect. So how are we going to trust them with enforcing laws where the logical conclusion is the government is going to kill you? It just doesn't make sense. And that's why in this consistent ethic of life, it includes not wanting war, for one, and capital punishment, because no matter where the government gets involved, they screw things up. They don't get it right. So I think that consistency, in my mind, the logical conclusion is the government should stay out of it.
No disagreement there. So how do you view like self-defense then from a Catholic lens? Is there any difference there between the NAP and the Catholic view? Or sorry, what you understand to be the Catholic view?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that I know of Catholics are pacifists. You have the right to defend yourself and your family. I mean, I'm not going to sit there, and if somebody breaks in my house and I have my daughter with me and they're going to go after her and it's her or them, I'm not going to be hands off. I have a gun. I'm going to shoot them. That's just all there is to it. That would be, I think, there's just war theory that the Catholic Church teaches, where, if there's someone who's aggressing upon you, then you have the right to defend yourself. The just war theory is for governments and things like that, but I think it could be applied to individuals as well.
Yes, that's interesting, because I always wonder, because the Catholics that I know from growing up Catholic and talking to people, like my understanding of the theology is like life is super sacred and you should do everything you can to not extinguish it. But then there's the self-defense aspect of it. Then there's also, like, I think about from an NAP perspective, like the government, like the non-aggression principle is supposed to be a mutual understanding, a mutual ethical agreement, right? And this is where I think the Napists really go off the rails. They're like, I saw that debate between Zulu and Dave Smith, where he was like, "Oh, I absolutely wouldn't, I wouldn't steal a penny to save my kid from getting murdered." It's like, okay, you've
To
lost
save
the
grandma, I mean, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, you've
That
lost
was,
the plot. The whole point is
yeah.
that Amity and Brent are supposed to have a mutual understanding of what the ethical framework is, and you don't aggress against me, and I don't aggress against you. And so, with the government, it's like this is not a mutual ethical arrangement, right? Like we're not operating from the same principles. Like the principle with government is they get to aggress against us, we cannot against them. Like that's the way the arrangement is. So like I view any action taken against government, I think the founders did too, as like, that's ethically permitted. Do you see any issue with that, or is there any difference there?
I just think if the government as an entity is not a person.
Yeah, it
So
doesn't
if
exist. It's not real. Yeah.
If a person aggresses against me, then I'm going to defend myself. The government itself is just a corporate body who is made up of human beings. So, I'm not going to say that, I'm acting in self-defense if I do something against the government who's doing something to me. I see it as an individual aspect, and we probably have very different philosophies on that. But
I don't think we do, because I firmly believe that ethics is a study of human behavior, what's allowable between two human beings, and the government
Sure.
doesn't exist. Like government's just an abstract, it's an idea, it's a concept. Like you said, it's like essentially a corporation, and only people's actions can be judged as ethical or unethical, right? And so I think we're completely aligned there. But I definitely think that that belief that government exists, and the belief that these systems of power are valid, and the fact that people pearl clutch a lot. Like if anyone suggests that maybe we do something about the government, like I think that is unfounded, because if you look at aggression, it's not just that person that shows up at your door to knock it down and take you to a cage, right? There's a bunch of aggressions that are happening all over the place. Everyone who is an administrator in the government, everyone who is an enforcer, a police officer, a prosecutor, like they're all sort of part of that system. They're surviving based on stealing everyone's money. So number one, everything they're doing is an act of aggression. And so I don't think that the government has the capability, people who work for the government have a capability of acting ethically and sort of being on that same ethical footing, an equal ethical footing as citizens. They kind of get put in this separate group and given extra rights that citizens don't have. And I think that's absolutely asinine.
Well, I think the first problem is, like you alluded to, that they think they have more rights, and they are just citizens who work for the government. And so, you hear it from people all the time in office: no one's above the law. Nobody should be above the law, whether it's a police officer, whether it's an elected official. I think everyone should be held to the same standards. They're not, but I just, again, focus on what I can change for myself personally. And, if there's nothing I can do about anything else, then there's nothing I can do about it. I think local governments are more legitimate because it's communities voting for their neighbors to form these corporations, whether it's an HOA or a local town board or whatever, to administer the needs of the town. I think that's a little more legitimate. I do think that the budgets should be funded voluntarily and not by taxes. But, I just focus on what I can control and leave the philosophy to people like you.
That's fair enough. Unfortunately, I'm a philosophy nerd, and like I keep having this idea that if I could just somehow explain it to people in a way they could understand, maybe they would make a different choice. I probably am fighting a losing battle. So hear me out. Like let's try another argument, and maybe it's not just for you, maybe it's for the people that are listening to this. But we talked about nobody's above the law and everyone has the same rights. I think people need to understand, people that, particularly Republican type folks, the constitutionalists, I think they need to understand or hear the argument that the Constitution actually makes a very particular claim that government employees have more rights than citizens. They have extra rights that you and I don't have. Namely, the right to commit murder, namely the right to commit theft, right? Namely the right to assault. Like these are rights that you and I don't have, Amity. But the claim that these people make, which I think is absolutely absurd, is that you get to delegate rights to a third party in government to sort of act on your behalf. And it's like, if you are not endowed with those rights yourself, I cannot see how somebody can delegate to a third party a right that they don't have. And I think that's something that breaks people that love the Constitution's brain because they don't want to accept that it is true. And so I wanted to sort of hear your take on that argument. Does that track for you, or do you have a different view on it?
You lost me. It's way over my head. No, I mean, again, there's going to be people in this world that don't think like us, that, don't get that. And, I don't know what to say about that. It's just, there's people who back the blue and still wave a Gadsden flag, which are diametrically opposed. I just, what are you going to do? You can't change the world. Change your family, change your community, and, the rest we can talk about all day long, but it's, unfortunately, there are going to be millions and millions and millions of people out there who just want to stand up and pledge allegiance to the flag and do whatever the government tells them and let it happen.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I'm going to make my arguments, but I'm definitely going to let it happen. I think that America has to get sicker before it gets better.
Yeah.
I think that like you talked about, the move to Catholicism and general church attendance across the board is up. I actually think it's a good thing. I think we've done that whole rejection of God, rejection of traditional ethics, and we've gone down the weird blue-haired, rabbit hole, and we've found that it's a dead end. I think a lot of people end up hollow, nihilistic, they're lacking meaning in their life, and I think that's endemic in society, broadly, culturally, but also in our government, right? And so I think that there's going to need to be like I hate to say it, but man, it's weird me being an atheist saying this, but like a spiritual awakening within America. Like we've got to get back to some of the things like Jordan Peterson talks about. Like I know that he's taken kind of a dark turn as of late, but he's got some really important things to add to the conversation. And I think that the quicker that America decides, like, look, maybe a return to tradition ain't such a bad thing. Maybe eschewing all this tech and not doing the Palantir thing and not being super hyper connected, maybe not, taking every possible convenience, and maybe adopting more of like a Amish, not fully Amish, but like something that's more natural, something that we evolved doing as human beings, as opposed to sticking the brain chip in and the Neuralink and connecting yourself to the net. Like I feel like we have like a decision point as a country. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love the technology. I could never like go completely off the grid, and unless of course you have Starlink. So, and I'm sorry, it's raining really hard, so I hope you don't hear that through my microphone. But
no, I do, but it's okay. It's soothing to me. It's
okay.
Calming me down. Make me wish I was in Florida.
That. Yeah, but I think we're seeing this in a smaller way, and in a like this new distrust for government, just in like you see it, and this is a smaller subsection of what the country is going through, but even with like the Massey primary, you see a lot of people going, hey, wait a minute, he's wholesome, he's a homesteader himself, he built his house with his bare hands, he's off the grid, he sticks to the Constitution. Isn't this what we want from our elected officials? And then you have people like Donald Trump who are bashing him at every turn, getting, supporting neocons and all this. And there's probably hundreds of thousands, if not more, people who are going, wait a minute, if he loses, there's no hope for America. And so you get these subsections of people who, people are drawn back to traditionalism, people are being drawn back to, traditional conservative values in politics, or they're being drawn away from politics completely. I don't know how many Republicans I've seen online who have said, I'm not voting in federal elections anymore because of the way Donald Trump campaigned on no new wars, or the way he's treating good people like Thomas Massey. So there's definitely something going on, whether it's politics or religion or both, where people are moving more towards traditionalism and more towards ignoring what the federal government's doing in DC and focusing more on what they can do for themselves and their communities.
Yeah, double tap on that. I completely agree with everything that you just said. And I'll also give you another white pill, which is a lot of the lefties. This has been really one of the bright sides of Donald Trump's second term, is a lot of lefties are completely jumping off of the pro-government train, at least right now. I hear them talking about getting guns. They're like talking about the government, like holy crap, the conservatives were actually right. There is such a thing as a tyrannical government, right? The people who made it through COVID on that government train, they're like, hell yeah, give me more of that. Those people have flipped. Like we moved from Seattle, and my kids have got friends that are up there, and I'm hearing it from all their lefty friends. They're like, where do I get a gun? This is messed up. Like they're completely turning anti-government. So if anything, I'm seeing that as a bright spot as well. We're getting it on both sides. I think the Epstein thing really helped too, because it's a bipartisan issue. It's like a human issue. You're seeing like, oh, this is really disgusting. This is what our government is made of, and the government's going to sit there and use our tax dollars to protect and spend millions of dollars redacting the information and fighting the release and making sure we don't know what's going on with these poor girls. I think it's it's having an effect. And I think cumulatively, America is going to completely fall apart. Where there's like there is no trust in the federal government, at least at a bare minimum, and people are going to be sort of preparing for what comes next. I don't know what that thing's going to be, but I am seeing that those signals from the left, which I haven't seen in a while. The anti-war left just disappeared after the Bush administration. They're starting to come back, and so I am seeing a lot of positive signs. Are you seeing similar signals?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I have to remind myself a lot is that the internet is not real life. I travel a lot, and of course, Free and I have been going to a lot of the state libertarian conventions for his live show, and I gave a speech on the consistent ethic of life at the California convention. And so we've been traveling around to all these places, so we see a lot of libertarians. But in my travels, like when I go visit my son, I see a lot of Democrats because it's a highly liberal area. And around where we live, there's a lot of people from different political parties. And there's a lot of common ground. And a lot of that is distrust in the government, like you said. It's really coming to a head. I don't know how DC is going to survive in its current form. I don't think it'll make it through our generation, through our lifetime. I think by the time we're 6 feet in the ground, our kids are not going to recognize DC. It's going to be a whole different system, and I think it may take the millennials and the Gen Zers to come up and do something about it. But once the boomer cons are out of DC, maybe something will turn around. But even if it doesn't matter, because I think there's enough people around the country, no matter what political party they're involved in, they just want to be self-sufficient and keep the government out of their business.
Yeah, I completely agree. Although I think it's going to collapse a lot sooner than people think. Like I said, I'm a computer science guy. I'm way too good at math. This exponential, this logarithmic curve with respect to spending, it's terrible, and it's getting worse. I like to point out the statistic to people. They don't believe me. Like, look it up. It's real. Donald Trump's responsible for 26% of every single of all the federal debt, the entire pie. So more than a quarter. He's accused. 1776 to 2026, 26% is him so far. We have 3 more years to go. That is an astronomical figure. And we can't keep doing this. And he's taking a different approach or the wrong approach, which is like now he's saying to Jerome Powell, hey, slam interest rates down to 0, fire up the money printer, which, as you know, is inflationary. It's going to make things worse. The spending is going to go up, the debt's going to go up, and eventually, and I think not too far future, no one's going to want to buy our debt. It's going to be not attractive. We're going to be like, well, who wants dollars, And then when that whole thing starts coming back to us, particularly because we've exported our inflation, because the OPEC deals, all these countries have to convert their currency to dollars to buy oil. When all those dollars start flooding back, man, it's over. Like, America's through dealing. And I fear that we're not going to make an intentional transition. We're not going to switch from what we are now to something better. I'm afraid of a failed nation state. Like, that's a really dangerous thing. When the government just fails. I mean, you could think about during the COVID times. How fast did the supply chain break down? People were fighting each other in Walmart over a roll of toilet paper, a pack of toilet paper. Like, seriously, yeah. Like, that was messed up. That was within 2 weeks. Like, everyone in the whole country was out of everything, and the supply chains had broken down. You want to, that was something that was a pandemic that was sponsored by the government. They were flooding dollars into the system to try to keep everything afloat and try to keep things going. Now imagine that government's not there, and everything just naturally falls apart. That's terrifying. We're talking about millions of people dying in a very, very short period of time. The electrical grid failing, the sewage systems failing, like everything falling apart, supply chains breaking down, people starving. That's the thing I guess that's why I'm such an asshole online, because I'm kind of like jumping up and down, waving my hands like, guys, this is really serious. Like, this is really serious. And I don't think people take it very seriously. And I think it'll be like COVID, where it sneaks up on you. It finally arrives on your doorstep, and then you're left with the situation to try to deal with. And you're like, well, boy, I really wish we had made different decisions. Well, the time to make different decisions is now. I mean, it was actually a long time ago, but this is the only moment we have. And so I'm going to keep trying to encourage people, like, man, let's make some different decisions. But like you, like, I'm a little bit skeptical that anyone's going to do anything with it. I think it's just this thing's got to run its course, and I don't see DC lasting a whole lot longer.
Yeah. I I don't know. I don't think that, although, so I'm kind of on the fence about this because I say I don't think it can last in its current form for much longer. People are just tired of what's going on. But the elite class is so powerful. I
Hmm.
mean, we've seen this with the Epstein files. We read some horrendous shit in those files. I mean, this is disgusting. This is children. I don't even, you've read it, so I
Yeah,
don't
we
have to
we
get
know
into
what's in
it.
those files.
And there is no accountability. I
Nobody seems to
mean,
care. That's what
nobody
bothers
seems to
me.
care. There's no charges. So if this is how our system is run and who runs our system, you know, I don't know what it's going to take for it to change. But again, that's why we have to build parallel systems, like you alluded to, be self sufficient, be ready, and not worry about what they're doing there because we can't change it. They're too powerful. It'll
Yeah,
have to collapse on its own.
yeah. And the question is, can you sustain yourself during the collapse? Right? Like, are you going
Right.
to get caught in that? And I really would encourage people to consider, like, doing whatever you can to protect yourself and your family. Because, boy, like, things can turn dark very quickly. And if you don't have the resources you need, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So that's just my caution to folks.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I put my faith in God and know that everything's going to be okay. I've got, great family surrounding me, and, you know, we'll be okay regardless.
I wish I was religious, man. I really do. I tell people this all the time. I wish I had a belief in God because it seems like that is something that can get you through times like this. Because
It's a great piece.
one of the things that sucks about being an atheist is like this. There's a lot of things that suck about it. And by the way, I'm
You
a
don't have to
reluctant.
be, Brett. Come
I
out of the
do, I
room.
do. But Amity, I have people on the show all the time that try to convince me, and I'm open to it. I'm seeking, like, and I also believe there's something there. So maybe we can talk about this too. Like, I think I know you and I have talked a little bit offline about my psychedelic experiences, right? Like, and I've talked on the show a bunch of times about it. There's something going on. Like, I'm convinced now that there's something out there. I don't know what it is. Those experiences are so monumentally mind blowing that I can't put language around it, and it's super deep and mystical. And I'm convinced that every religion in the world is pointing at that same thing. Like, whatever that state that I get into, whatever I connect with, it feels very transcendent. It feels like whatever God would be, right? I never had that when I was in churches, but I have that on those experiences, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But I feel like the claims that made by religious people are just wrong. So I'm kind of in this weird spot where I want to be convinced, but it's almost like I was talking to Tyler Tote on my show about this, and he's been a great person I've leaned on a lot. He's a very strong Christian. And I'm like, Tyler, it's like, it's just that I don't, like, you can't convince me. Like, if I were to say, like, well, the sky's actually green and I'm going to believe it, it's like, you can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't make yourself believe something. Like, if you're like, I'm looking at it, it's blue, but I'm trying to convince myself that it's green. That's the kind of like block that I have, but I'm definitely open to it. And I'm waiting for somebody to convince me because I see the utility. Like, I see the value in it. I see the value in the community, in the traditions, in like the peace that you have, believing there's eternal justice, like the Epstein people, that someday they're going to go to hell and get punished or whatever. Like, there's so much comfort in that. And being an atheist, where it's like, especially an atheist that cares a lot about ethics, seeing people get off the hook, like these people are going to get away with it. They're going to murder people. They're going to start wars. They're going to, SA children. That's a deeply unsettling thing to have to sit with, And so that leaves, maybe that's why I'm so concerned with ethics here and now. Right? You see me, I'm incensed. I see these horrible things that are going on. These school getting bombed with those girls over in Iran, and people just, and the White House posting these dunking videos, like, like the video game stuff. Have you seen
Yeah,
that
it
stuff?
was
They're
awful.
it's
Yeah,
horrendous.
it was disgusting.
And so maybe that's why I am the way I am, if that makes sense. It's like I'm so focused because I feel like this is maybe finality. Like maybe there is nothing after this, and we're just whatever we were before we were born, we just kind of turned into that void. Like, it gives me activation energy to want to change things here and now. I don't want to wait until heaven or hell or some existential outcome. But I tell you, I really wish there was a switch, because I told the people on my show tons of times, like I would push that button. Like if I could just legitimately believe in God, like boy, I would hit that button like with both hands repeatedly. I definitely wanting to be convinced.
Well, as a Catholic, I don't think I need to wait for justice either, or wait for eternity. I mean, eternity starts in your lifetime and continues after it. I don't see it as a finality of, somewhere we're going. It's just a journey, and it continues after our death. We're alive in Christ. So I think there's still the need for justice, and in this lifetime, I think that, just focusing on helping people see their inherent dignity, and making sure people are safe, the less vulnerable children, doing all we can for them. That's still important in this lifetime, even though there will be final justice in the end, that I believe there will be. But, only you can make that choice, Brent. I mean, something's tugging at you.
Me. It is.
Something's tugging at you, and I know it. And I'd love to talk to you offline about that in greater detail. But, I'm not going to evangelize you. I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to answer any questions you have, and point you to resources that you probably already have, and
yeah,
just
you
live
know
by
me. This is my
example.
problem. It's like I've already thought about this. Like I've dissected it from every possible angle, and I'm stuck here. It sucks, because I feel like, oh well, I'm just kind of stuck here. And luckily, though, I think I'm in a good spot. Other than the existential angst about final judgment, like I really wish I could just take the Epstein class and the war pigs and be like, y'all get final justice somewhere. Like I would love to take that piece of it. But
You know what's funny? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, what's funny is we were talking about how, like, a lot of Protestant denominations are evangelical, and they go out and try to pull people in and all that. When I was on message boards in the early 2000s, there was like all these denominations, and everybody tried to get you to convert to their different flavor of Christianity. And this Catholic lady, her name's Lori, she's actually on X, and she sees my posts, and we talk every once in a while. We've kept in touch for like over 20 years. And she was this sweet Catholic lady, and all she would do was tell me she was praying for me. And one time she sent me a book on what what the Mass means. And it sat on my shelf for like over 15 years, and I never read it, but she didn't push me. She was just like, can I have your address? I want to send you a book. And then I read it when I was looking into the Catholic Church, like 15 years later. And then like one year, I was like going through this thing, and I didn't have a nativity set, and she's like, I'm going to mail you a nativity set. Like she did things by example, and she just showed the love of Jesus. She showed what a good person was. She was never overbearing. She never said, you need to become Catholic, Amity. But you know what? As soon as I decided I was becoming Catholic, she was the first person I reached out to, because I was like, guess what, Lori?
Got some news
I'm
for you.
becoming Catholic. Yeah. So, it's everybody has their own journey, and it's just that own. It's your personal choice. I mean, I have faith that you're going to find your way to Christ like everybody else does. Whenever it is, who knows?
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate anyone who's praying for me, because like I'm not one of those Reddit atheists who's like a complete asshole about it. Like I'm legitimately seeking here, and I definitely am convinced that there's something going on that I just haven't quite figured out. But the other point that I was going to make, real quick, is that I'm not so anxious about it as I was when I was like Catholic or Protestant, because there was always like, and maybe this is part of my religious wounding, is that there's always that threat of hell. Which, part of that is the, hey, yay, eternal justice, but also like you worry about getting it wrong. Like, what if I pick the wrong God? What if I pick the wrong denomination? Am I going to get punished for it? Like that angst really sat with me for a large part of my life, and I don't have that anymore. I feel kind of like okay about playing with ideas and like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. What's going on with this experience? Hearing from other people who've had spiritual experiences, studying other spiritual traditions. I feel more at peace about like there's no fear. Like I don't really have this sort of existential dread like I did when I was religious. But I am definitely seeking, man. Like, 'cause it's such a big subject, and maybe that's why I sort of don't like people who are too sure, like the people that are very much, like you said, in your face proselytizing and you're wrong and you have to convert to my religion. Or you're like,
Yeah.
I think that is arrogant, and I think that understates the enormity of whatever we would call God is, right?
Right.
Like I think that to say that I have it all figured out, I know the mind of God, I know exactly the way the universe is structured, I know it seems very arrogant, and I've been trying to approach it with a little bit more humility and curiosity, and I think that's sometimes lacking in those spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's one thing that the Catholic Church that appealed to me was that I always had these uh, feelings of angst or, oh no, what if I don't have it right? And now I just don't feel that way. I feel like, well, you know, I'm here on this earth. I'm doing what I feel is, good for people I encounter, and I try to just do the best I can. And if I get it right, good. If I got it wrong, I guess I'll find out later. But
Or you won't.
I don't, or I won't. I'm not going to stress out about it. I am completely confident in my journey, in my faith journey, and I can't impose that on anyone else. Everyone else has their own faith journey, and I can't do anything about it for anyone else but myself.
That's a good attitude about it. I think that you got that exactly right. A quick question about modern Catholicism. I want to know if it's changed any since I was coming up. One of my complaints about it is it never seemed to be very community centric, meaning it's like everybody, when I was growing up, even though I lived in a very, very small town, people kind of like went to church like for themselves. Like, your little family sat together and you didn't really know the people around you, and you did the thing, and you walked out, and there wasn't any like, where I think the Protestants do a great job of like having community type of stuff. Like the people that go to those churches hang out afterwards. They have a connection, they have community. I haven't seen so much of that in the Catholic Church. So is that your experience, or has something changed, or what's it like going to church being a Catholic nowadays?
Well, I think you get out of it what you put in, and a lot of people will just show up on Sunday, go to Mass, and go home. Um, so the Mass is to worship God. We're there for the sacrifice of the Mass, to remember what Jesus did on the cross, and that's not for community. Well, we are a community, but it's not for socializing and all that. There are times afterwards, of course, and there's when I was in Virginia, I was part of a women's Bible study. There was like up to 20 of us at one time, that every Monday night we would show up and we would spend 2 hours together, and we would not just have Bible studies, but we would do dinners together, and we'd go out to movies together. And so there are communities, but as individuals need to form those communities. Like, I was in a church one time, and I used to, I would say something like, oh, there's nothing to do. There's no Bible study. Well, start one, And so, yeah, I think the Mass itself, I feel more close to people around me in Mass because I met people outside of Mass, in the Bible studies, in the dinners, in the going out to movies, and making friends. And so I feel like it was, a big family. I've just moved to Florida, so I haven't built community yet in my new parish. But in Virginia, I can say that, I would walk into church and I knew a lot of people because of the community I built outside of Mass. Or I would go to daily Mass, and the people in daily Mass is such a smaller group. After Mass, we'd stand out in the hallway and we'd talk to each other. Or we'd get a rosary group together and show up, like in May, we'd show up and pray the rosary every night in May, and live stream it for our parish. So, yeah, there's definitely things. I can't compare it to, when you were there, because I've only been in the Catholic Church for a few years, but for me, I haven't had that experience. I've built great communities in the Catholic Church.
Very cool. The reason I ask is very specific. Is that I've said it on my show a bunch of times. I'm actually considering going back to church. You know, like I truly
Hell yeah.
believe that there's, and it's not because I believe it's literally true, but I think there's something. Brett Weinstein had this great quote called "literally false, metaphorically true," meaning that you would be better off had you believed that it was true, right? So I think the my view on church is very much like that, and I know I'm very Jordan Peterson-esque. You know, I've been influenced a lot by him, and I think his arguments make a lot of sense. I think that, you know, this is really the structure that's holding up Western civilization. Is what built Western civilization, and to dispense with that casually, just be like, nope, don't need that anymore. We can operate off pure rationality and reason. And like, no, I don't think we can. And I think there's elements that are baked into the church. Like I said, I think both sides get some of it right or better than others. Like meaning Catholic and Protestant. This is just my view, by the way. It's just my opinion. There's good in both. Maybe that's a better way to put it. That things that they excel at versus the other. And I've been struggling. Like, well, what do I do? You know, it's like I want certain aspects of it, and there's certain things I think are valuable in both of it, and maybe I'll just go to both. You know, like maybe I'll switch. You know, I think maybe people get too tied with like I've got to go to a single church. Maybe that's that Protestant side of me, because Protestants are very much that way. Like you don't go to a different church, whereas Catholics, it's like go to whatever church you want to. It's totally fine.
I think it's the opposite.
Oh, do you really?
Like as a Catholic, I would never tell somebody to go to a Protestant church. Like if you're Catholic,
Oh no! I
you
mean,
go to,
Catholics meaning you can go to a different parish. Like you can go to any
oh
Catholic church
yeah.
in the world, and it's the same
I
thing.
gotcha.
Whereas Protestants, it's like, especially the ones that are kind of like independent. Like they're very big on we're building our church, and we're bringing people in, and don't go to the other church. That was my experience anyway. By the way, this is just me talking. I sort of
There
had
were
this.
there were certain denominations wenothey would encourage you not to go to other denominations, but for the most part, most Protestants, you can go like, I don't know. It depends on the denomination. There's so many of them that, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
different.
Rome really changed me, honestly. Like spending so much time in Rome this year, it's like it healed, I think, a lot of that religious trauma from growing up. And I remembered there's a lot of nostalgia to it. You know, it was like I saw the you know, where I'd just been kind of like very dismissive of it, and I was kind of angry at it because I'd been wounded. I kind of saw like the positive sides to it, and I kind of wanted
Yeah.
some of that again. I felt like when I was in, you know, in Florence at the Duomo, like I'm just like you're just filled with awe, right? And it's like we don't build things like this anymore. You know, it's like the
Yeah.
modern, you know, if you go to like a traditional, you know, evangelical church or something, it's a different experience. It's not built to be this like cathedral that's honoring God. That's like kind of what I felt the Catholics got right, is they spent so much time and effort and energy building this place that's supposed to fill you with awe and sort of like quiet, you know, there's like this peace to it, you know? And so I don't know, man. I'm just I'm thinking I've got to do something. I think it would be beneficial to my life, and I'm toying with it. But boy, I'm still not convinced. I must be a very weird person to even consider this. But that's where I'm at.
Well, you did send me that beautiful rosary from Rome, and I have been asking our Blessed Mother to intercede for you when I pray my rosary. So you shouldn't have sent me that rosary if you didn't want me to use it.
I didn't say that. Did I say I don't want you to use it? I told you I'm ready to be convinced.
I know.
Andy. Like
Good.
I'm not a resistant. Yeah, I'm not resisting the whole thing. I'm like, hey, if somebody talk me into it. That's really where I'm at. So pray me into it, talk me into it, argue your way into it. I just wish, I really do. I wish I could push a button and just be like, blast my mind a little bit differently. But here I am.
There's
Alas,
some
I'm still stuck.
There's some excellent podcasts. I mentioned earlier in the show, the Coming Home Network. I'll send you some info. They have some amazing podcasts. There's some former Protestant preachers who have converted to Catholicism, who like dissected everything before they made this decision to become Catholic. And there's some really interesting and really funny podcasts. So they're friends of mine. So I'll have to send you some of that stuff too.
Send it to me. I'm a nerd. I will watch all of it. It's a
Awesome.
favorite topic of mine for sure.
Yeah.
And so I got about 10 minutes left. What do you want to talk about, Amity? Because like the thing that's been on my mind that's bugging me is the war stuff, and I don't want to end on that. Like we've been kind of past that and talking about some pleasant stuff. So is there something else you want to end with?
No, I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, what's been on your mind? Like, what have you been thinking about?
uh, War, unfortunately.
We can
I
talk about
know.
that.
No, we've had such a great conversation about faith and all that. I hate to talk about it, but you know, it is what it is. It's
Well, well,
happening, and
well, maybe look at it this way, and this is kind of the way I think about it when I'm getting way too spicy on X. It's like love of virtue and hatred of evil. It's like two sides of the same coin. And so like we can be against things, like we can be vociferously against things like war, and it's like it shouldn't be viewed as like negative because we're advocating for peace. Essentially, we're saying like, look, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be blowing up half the world. You shouldn't be like doing all this horrible stuff. Like maybe make a different choice. So I don't see it as necessarily negative, but it definitely gives me a negative feeling. Like I hurt when I see you know the way X is, it's just full of streams of people getting blown up and these horrible atrocities that are happening. It's like it kind of guts me, you know. Um, and also what guts me is seeing reactions to it, like people flippantly or like laughing or celebrating or not treating these people like they're human beings. Is particularly the anti-Islamic crowd that's just like, well, they're just, you know, whatever, insert whatever pejorative, I won't even say it, and acting like they're not even human beings. And for me, that just doesn't sit well with my soul. I think you know my job. I go around the whole world. I've been to the Middle East. I've met tons of Muslims. I've met people from all across the world. And people are generally the same. You know, we got differences for sure, but these are human beings. And when you've met these people, you've dined with these people, you went to their house for, you know, religious events. Like I know this type of person that's getting blown to bits. One of the guys I work with, his wife is Iranian, you know, and she's over here, her family's over there. So I've got like a connection to all of this. And to see people casually dismiss it and say, oh, it's just, you know, it's glass the whole thing or whatever, you know, horrible epithet people throw around online, like that really gets to me. Like that bothers me deeply.
yeah, I mean, we saw it in Gaza. We're seeing it now in Iran. Uh, we've seen it for decades, where it, people are treated as less than human because they have brown skin and they
Mm.
worship differently, and it's disgusting. It hurts my soul, and I don't know how to talk to people. You know, sometimes I talk or I type till I'm blue in the face about how these are human beings with dignity and we should respect them as such. And people are like, they're Islamic. Well, no, these are people going to work, going to school. You know, what is it? I keep seeing different numbers, but 170 little girls between the ages of 7 and 12 years old are now gone. And people are trying to justify it. They went from Iran did it themselves, which was, of course, debunked, to, oh, we did it accidentally, to, it doesn't matter because, you know, it's their own government's fault because they started this 47 years ago. If this was going on for 47 years, why didn't Trump do something in his first term? Why didn't Biden do something? Why didn't Obama do something?
There we go, being handicapped by reason again.
Exactly, I know. It's this stupid narrative, and it's like it's exhausting, because how do you convince someone that another human being deserves to live unless they have the moral, you know, thoughts in their head that human beings are worth living? You know, they're worth staying alive. They're worth not being blown to bits by Tomahawk cruise missiles or whatever the hell we're sending over there. It's disgusting. And then the White House, like, putting out video game looking depictions of bombings. And we blew up one of Iran's ships. They were just doing a parade.
Oh, the
for,
exercise. It was the exercise. It was a joint military exercise off the coast
Yes.
of India. Yeah,
India.
and they were participating together, and on the way
unarmed.
out, it was terrible.
The U.S. backed out, and they knew it was going on, and then they blew up the Iranian ship. It was literally it was not a defensive move. This ship had no weapons on it. It was like you said, it was a parade exercise or whatever. I mean, this is just the kind of government that we have now. Pete Hegseth went into office saying he was a recovering neocon. Well, he's fallen off the wagon, obviously.
Yeah, it's sad. And I think the problem with these never ending wars in the Middle East is that it's caused America to become desensitized, I think, because it never happens here, because if we had empathy for people and we flipped the script and be like, well, what if Iran had just blown the shit out of a school and killed 170 girls in the United States, like we would never stop talking about it. It would be on the news cycle 24/7 and people be incensed and outraged. But because it happens over there where we can't really see it, people just kind of shrug. I think there's a dehumanization that happens, particularly with the Islamic world in the Middle East, where it's like these are not human beings. They're just sort of like the other. They're some nameless, faceless, group of people headed by a madman. It's always a madman. It's Saddam with his weapons of mass destruction. It's the Ayatollah with his, nuclear ambitions, and like they're going to get us. They're going to get us. And America is so easily sucked in to that kind of narrative. And then I think when you threaten a tribe like that, like, oh, existential threat of nuclear weapons, then of course, then kill them first, right? And there's no thought, and it's not anywhere near our door. And most of the footage, as you know, is from like way far away, and orange cloud goes up, but you don't see the actual devastation. You don't see the actual human impact, and particularly on X. I mean, X is being censored left and right now. Elon, oh my gosh, that dude turned out to be almost as big a hypocrite as Donald Trump. Like he's getting his DOD checks now, and he is completely complicit and starting to censor anybody online who says anything at all that's anti-war. I'm sick to my stomach about that one. That's the one that I think, like me, being the pattern recognitionist, I didn't even see that coming. Like I thought Elon was kind of one of the good guys, maybe trending libertarian, quoting Rothbard, talking about Ron Paul. That was nonsense, man. We all got played there.
Yeah, my reach has tanked. as soon as February 28th hit and Iran started getting bombed, my reach has been awful ever since. And I know I've heard several people have the same problem, but that is sad. I thought it was going to be this free speech platform, and we could say what we wanted and we could express our views. I think my biggest sadness is seeing aside from the death and destruction itself, is seeing the desensitization.
Easy for you to say.
Everybody's desensitized, right? Okay, so let me say that another way. But people who were so gung-ho about, yes, let's get this president in office who's no new wars and all this, and they're just like, and I don't even know how much of it's authentic. I mean, there's so many paid bots that are just putting out the talking points. You don't even know if you're talking to a real person, but there's so many people. I've even talked to people, in real life, so I know that there's people out there like this who are just falling for it again. Like you didn't live through 9/11. You didn't live through shock and awe. You didn't live through weapons of mass destruction that turned out to be false. You didn't live through, the anthrax file that Colin Powell held up or whatever it was, and it's like that was fake. I mean, and these people are like, we've been at war 47 years. We have to blow them off the planet. Bullshit, like
the talking point that nobody said even once until a week ago. How are these people programmed like this? Like, I don't get it. Like, do you have an independent thought in your head? I don't
and
know.
That's scary that our country is full of people like that. It's sad to me that people can be so easily swayed.
Yeah, it is to me too. But I'm also like, okay, well, that's reality. Like Ayn Rand had the greatest quote, which is, you could ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. So I'm trying to like just accept, like, okay, this is the reality. This is what the normie NPC way of being is. The question I have now is like, okay, well, how do we change that? How do we break through that force field? And then, boy, I have no answers at this point. I'm still searching.
It all comes down to localism. Localism and just focusing on community, because that's all we're going to have. If it all goes to shit in Washington, we still have our communities, we still have our churches, we still have our neighbors, and I think that is definitely key.
I 100% agree. I always say, like everyone, there's that adage, like everyone wants to change the world, nobody wants to change themselves. Like, hey, everybody, within the sound of my voice, you can change yourself. That's the entire point of the podcast. Aiming up, it's like, hey, you don't have to go straight up, but maybe a little bit better each day. Try to improve. Set a good example, like you said. That's beautiful. I think what's one of the best things Ron Paul ever did. It's just like, hey, set a great example. Maybe people want to follow you, but at least you'll get your life sorted out. You'll improve. You'll get better every day. So I will leave it at that. That's a great place to end it.
I agree.
Well, hey, why don't you let people know where to find you in case like somebody is born under a hot rock and has no idea who you are and where to find you.
Yeah, so I spend most of my time on X. They can find me at AmityLee13, and I am there pretty much every day, cyberbullying the government and
Hell yeah.
trying to make the world a better place.
Awesome. Well, it was awesome talking to you. We can't wait this long anymore. Like this is so great, and I can think of like a million other things I want to talk to you about. So I will definitely have to have you back on in the future. So thanks for talking to me, and we'll chat with you later.